spoken to some of our young people and they say, when I get smashed by a wave and everything, like my whole body's just moving underwater, it makes me feel like what my brain is like. And I feel connected, and then I can wash it all away. And then that is something so totally unique that can happen in the ocean environment. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
Rachael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want to start by just introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I'm Rachael. I am the founder and CEO of a program called Ocean Mind here in Torquay. And I am an avid surfer. I love getting out in the ocean as much as possible. More recently, it's been around sharing that love with others and helping other people learn to surf as well. But I also just love being outdoors and doing anything that takes me outside as much as possible.
Yeah, outdoors. And when you say surfing for others, is that like teaching others? Is that like, or is it more going out for community, or what does that kind of look like?
I guess it's a little bit of both, but I guess in my family at the moment, I'm getting to, having an opportunity to share that love with those in my family, which is really exciting and really fun to get back to the basics of learning to surf again and remembering that joy of just the simple things when you're surfing, like getting to your knees, to not falling off. Back when surfing was so simple. And you found fun and enjoyment in all of it. And I think as you go on your surfing journey and you get better and better, you tend to have higher expectations of what a good time in the water is. And then when you get back to teaching someone new, a good time in the water is every time in the water. And it just reminds you that that's kind of the basis of it all.
Yeah, like that's where the froth, I guess, like begins. And it's like, oh, that's why I do it. Because I think it's really easy to get really in your head in the surf. And I imagine that, working with others and especially your family members, like you would know them so well. So sharing that would be so rewarding.
Yeah.
So cool. And how did you get into surfing?
Well, it wasn't until later on in life for me. I was traveling around and I found myself in Portugal. And whilst traveling, everyone just presumed, being an Australian, you knew how to surf. But I didn't. And I was in Portugal and I wasn't having a great time. I was working in a hostel and the guy was just an avid surfer that I was working with. And he was, like, what's going on? Why aren't you happy? You're traveling. You're in Portugal from Australia. Why aren't you just, going out and enjoying it? And I was just like, I can't explain it. I'm just not happy. I'm just depressed. I'm not feeling great. He's like, oh, you just need to learn to surf. Well, I don't know if that's going to be the easy fix, but funnily enough, it was. He organised me some lessons with a friend of his, and they took me out the next day. And got down to the beach. And, I love being outdoors. And I'm like, of course I'll give this a go. And got in the water and it did. Like I was smiling and I was laughing and I was just being silly. And I hadn't felt that kind of ease for so long. And I got addicted to it straight away. Like I didn't stand up my first lesson and not at all. I was 30. I was so uncoordinated. I was falling over. I was like not even getting to my knees, but I was having a ball doing so. And I was in the lesson with other children that were just getting up and surfing, and it was embarrassing, but I loved it still. And it also just gave me that space and that break of not feeling good. And, when I got back to the shore and I got back home and I was on that surf high for a little bit and then it disappeared and then I got back to like the feelings that I was having. But the next day I went back and got another hit of those good times. And I just every day for the whole time that I was working there, which was 2 months, I got in the ocean and I tried to surf, and slowly but surely got better. And that idea of as an adult being really bad at something but persevering and learning a new skill is, we don't often do it, but it does make a huge difference to how you're feeling and, your feeling of accomplishment, and also bringing that inner child out of your adult self and letting it play.
Totally. It's like, it's just, I've noticed it within myself that when I do step out into that and really connect with that inner child, I see it seep out into all other elements of your life, like slowly, because you're like, oh, hang on, I did that really hard thing of like getting in the water, overcoming my shit. And then it's like, oh, hang on, like life's amazing. And I think like being in the water, it's one of those things that you just like can't think of anything else except being in that present moment. And you notice, and you may have like that moment where you're like, okay, I'm not drowning, I'm not surfing, I'm not looking for a wave. Like, oh, look at the sky, look at the bird, look at the fish, look at the rocks up there. It's like just grabs you. And it's incredible. So you learned to surf in Portugal, and then where from there?
I travelled around for a bit, and came back to Australia for a friend's wedding. It was going to be a brief, short stint in Australia and then going back and travelling. But I found myself in Torquay. I came down here to surf, to keep learning, and I loved it. And one day, as I was driving back from Torquay back to Melbourne, where my parents lived, I was like, I'm just going to move. And the next weekend I'd found a house and a house share, and had moved myself down here and started a life in Torquay.
How cool. You like followed the stoke or the froth and you're like, I just need to surf.
Yep.
I think that's the way, because that trip from Melbourne, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that early morning. That's so cool. And at the time, what were you doing for work? Like, were you having a hiatus because you were traveling, or because you've got a background in youth work?
Yep.
Was that pre-travel?
Yeah. So I was working in Melbourne in the homelessness sector and the youth justice sector for 8-9 years prior to going travelling. And then when I went travelling, I did work in the youth sector in the UK, which was really interesting. And it was really, really great to see how different countries approach youth work and out-of-home care. And then when I got back to Australia, I wanted to get back into youth work. I had to have that break from youth work. It's a hard job to do, and you see so many young people going through some really tough times and looking to you for help, and sometimes you can't, and sometimes the systems don't allow it, and sometimes it just you just can't do anything, and it's really heartbreaking, and it takes its toll. So I needed to have that break from working as a youth worker back then. And then when I got back to Australia, I wanted to do it differently. I got so frustrated with the system and the way we had to work with young people as opposed to what really worked. And I wanted to try and find something different, and I'd learned to surf, and I was like, this is kind of magical. I want to share this with other young people. And so when I came back to Australia, I started that process of looking into is surf therapy a thing? Is surfing with young people around mental health has that been used before? And the more I researched, the more I found all these different programs around the world that were coined surf therapy, and we're working with young people, with returned veterans, with children that were street children in South Africa. There was all these different programs, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. This is my dream job. But there wasn't anything happening in Torquay or in Victoria. And I was like, well, I guess we just need to start it.
Guess I got to do it.
That's just what has to happen. So I worked in the youth work field, like whilst starting up Ocean Mind, I was working a couple of different jobs. I was working in Melbourne in a youth hostel for homeless young people. I was working in Geelong in a youth hostel as well. And I was working for Diversitat as well, so with refugees and asylum seekers, and then starting Ocean Mind.
At the same time, that would have been a hectic time.
It was, but it was also like I'd just come back from traveling and having all these small little things were great for me. I didn't want to be in a full-time job, and I didn't want to work that way anymore. And so having all these different things that intrigued me in different ways and engaged different parts of me was really exciting. So although I had 5 jobs at the same time as starting Ocean Mind, it was a crazy time, but what also wasn't, because it was what I was looking for.
Yeah. And I think, because I find myself in a similar situation at the moment, and it's like there's moments where you're like, oh, it's like the mental load of carrying across so many different things, except I guess in some way there's I guess you still have I don't want to say purpose, because I think it's that sounds so fixed, but it's you have a passion or something you're really passionate about. And all the things can kind of lead to that one, I guess your why, why you're doing all of this and what you're trying to explore. And it sounds like it was all on the same page, and it was all working together while you were setting up that Ocean Mind. And you probably, I imagine, were you going into the work looking at it through a different lens because you had Ocean Mind running as well, or you were working on that?
I guess I used those other roles to support building what Ocean Mind looked like. So as I was researching and looking at, how to build out the model, what to put in there and what not to put in there, I was sort of leaning on those other roles. And, I even had conversations with some of the young people that I was working with, and say, this is what I'm working on. What do you think? And they would all give me some great feedback. One young girl was like, I'm never going to get in a wetsuit. Why would you do a program? It's not, I would never do that. And I'm like, well, what would make you do that? And she's like, nothing.
Zero motivation.
Absolutely zero. And we kept talking through it, and it kind of made me realize that actually it's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be, and Ocean Mind is around mental health and well-being for young people, but I also know that this is only a piece of that puzzle of what that mental health support could look like for the community. And so it was really that aha moment when she was talking to me, going, all right, that's right. I'm not aiming this at everybody. I'm aiming this at some young people that this will work for.
I guess you were niching down even further when before you're and I guess I think I can imagine that going into youth work, you're I just want to help all youth, you just I want to help everyone, and rather than okay, I'm going to help this niche of people. How or why did you get into youth work?
It's probably many, many reasons. All stemming from when I was a child.
Yeah.
I think one of the main contributing factors for me, there's 2 main ones. So the first one is when I was growing up, my family were a foster family. My parents were foster parents. And my mum made this decision with us as a family that this is something that she wanted to do, is give back to some more children that don't have, the families that we have. And so she asked all of us kids, and I have 2 brothers, so there was the 3 of us, if we were open to sharing our house and our family and our lives with another young person. And we all said yes, which is fantastic. I'm glad we did. But over the years, we had I think it was about 7 different young people that came through and lived with us. Some were long-term and some were short-term. And I think that taught me and my brothers some really important lessons really young. I think I was 7 when we had our first foster child in the house, and it really taught us to appreciate what we had, and that there was so much so much that wasn't fair in life. I think that's probably fairness is something that that me and my brothers all talk about a little bit of like, we really felt lucky as children, but also realized that the world wasn't fair, and that other children, for no reason at all, didn't have parents like we had. And at that young age to understand that, I think is a fantastic lesson. It's a hard lesson, but a fantastic lesson to have. And I think that shaped us as children, through our adolescence and through our choices in what we all do for work. So,
are you all in similar work?
Yeah. So my older brother's a psychologist, and my younger brother is a defense lawyer.
Cool.
So so all very roles that give back to community.
Help community. That's like such a young age to welcome someone into your home. What, like, I guess like that fairness, how has that like shown up or manifested in your life? Like, because like, have you noticed that you're like, oh, hang on, I do things like that a little bit different to say other people? Because that your perspective would be so different because you've been exposed to different things at such a young age.
Yeah. I think it's that realization that everyone, and from a young age, that realization everyone has got their own struggles and everyone is struggling through something. And so being a little bit more empathetic towards people, I think, is one of the big things that we as kids have sort of really, our empathy levels are quite high.
Yeah.
And that ability to stop, even in arguments or even when things go wrong or, somebody's done something to you that you're not so happy about, to sort of stop, think about it and be like, well, what's going on for them? And I think it's a really important thing for all of us to do, is like stop and think, what's going on for that other person, for them to be acting or treating me that way, and trying to understand where behaviors are coming from in other people.
Yeah.
And then also self-assessing where your behaviors are coming from as well.
Totally. And I guess like, what have you learned about mental health? Because I mean, you've had your own mental health struggles, as you mentioned, in Portugal.
Yep. What
have you learned about mental health, I guess, from your work as well as your upbringing?
So from my upbringing, so I guess when I was talking about why I got into youth work, the second reason was because when I was in my teenage years, I was diagnosed with bipolar, and was, I had a really tough time with that. I had to stay in a psychiatric ward. I wasn't coping very well, and was medicated, and doing that through your adolescence when everything is already haywire, was really difficult. And, there was lots of issues around, well, for me, feelings of not fitting in with others and not being able to talk about mental health and mental illness. It was a real secret that we didn't talk to our friends about. Like, I would leave school once a week and go into the city with my mum. But mum would make up an excuse to the school, like the school knew, but to my friends and like what I could say to everyone. So they didn't know I was going and seeing a psychiatrist, and they didn't know that I'd, been in a hospital. And so it was really like, in that day and age, it wasn't spoken about very often. And so for me, I felt very alone in what I was experiencing. And then, going into youth work, because, I wanted to make sure other young people didn't feel alone in these times when, adolescence is just hard. Adolescence and mental health is even harder. And then other things not going right in your life. Wow, it's just, it just doesn't, you feel so alone, and you just need some people around you being your cheerleaders. And so going into youth work, that was my sort of main focus of wanting to make some differences in the mental health world, wanting to make sure that young people didn't have anywhere near the experience I had of feeling alone, like not just the mental illness, but the social stuff that came around that as well. And I think it's really important to understand mental illness from that perspective of actually, like, you need community, you need people to actually help you through what you're going through. And that some of the mental illnesses that we are seeing in community is because we don't have that connection with other people, that, you know, that sense of real loneliness and not being part of a community really builds and affects our mental health so much. And so what we've learnt, or what I've learnt through my journey myself, to look at what wellness is for me, but also that journey of how do I help other young people in my youth work role, is that it's not just about what's going on in your head. It's about what's going on in your body and what's going on around you in your community. And all of those things need to be worked on to actually find health and well-being for you, and to be able to support your mental health and well-being. I don't think we can just deal with what's going on in the brain without looking at everything else that's going on holistically in that person's life and supporting all of it, to expect there to be some changes and expect there to be sort of steps towards health.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And I can imagine your own personal experience. I mean, your upbringing as well as your own mental health, and then working in that, it would be the way that you would view and you would work would be like incredible, because there is like that holistic. And you've mentioned briefly like the system and how, you know, it's, I mean, like I speak about this all the time because I very much agree with you that it is holistic. It's physical, it's mental, and it's community. And I think even still in this day and age, to get help is so expensive and it's not accessible. And I also, with, you know, the justice system and everything, it's like, I guess I have the belief that people aren't bad. Bad things happen and it's circumstantial. Like, I don't think that there is like an excuse or there is like a maybe around that either. Like, it is, you know, and I think everyone needs the community. They need the support. Like, they, I guess, need to be like heard and seen for who they are. And I think the quotation mark bad things that happen, it's like, I guess it's the human condition. And it's part of, I guess it's like, I'm not sure how much like shadow work and all of that, you know, it's like it is the human condition. And I think it's so powerful, that holistic and having people that have like seen, you know, it's like, oh no, like I can imagine in your work, it would have been seeing people and being like, I'm here for you. And yeah, that's really cool. And thank you for being so open about your upbringing and everything.
Not a problem.
Too.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, how have you experienced, like, I guess, or what are your views on like vulnerability? And like, because I think it's like one thing to be lonely and not have your community. But I think sometimes when you're in that space, getting out of it is so hard. There's like even when you like understand that you're lonely, getting out of that, like, it's like, I don't know how to get out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really hard thing to do. And it starts with you recognizing not when you are there, but before you are there. And being able to potentially put things in place, but that's that takes a lot of work and a long time to get to. And you need people around you supporting you to get there. I think over the years, like as you get older, I think you become or have the ability to become more vulnerable, and to find trust in those around you. And when you do that, you get vulnerability back, and then this connection happens with those that are around you. But it's so easy to shy away from that hard work. It is hard and it is scary. When we're trying to get back to a connection, when we are alone, when we're feeling really lonely, when we're feeling like we can't connect with people, it's when we need people the most. And unfortunately, our behaviours that happen in that space are usually pushing people away, making arguments. It'll be, complaining about things, and it just pushes that community away, and it feeds that loneliness, and it feeds those feelings that we don't want to feed. They've got enough hold there. They've got enough food. We don't need to give them more. But when we're feeling like that, that's all we do is we feed it. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so it's the hardest thing to do is to go against that and to come back and say, I pushed you away because I'm lonely and I'm still lonely. Or I made this argument with you because if you leave, then it's okay and I can feel these feelings. But if I feel lonely when you're here, it's really confusing. And so actually having those conversations and speaking to what's happening, but that involves a lot of deep and thought around what's going on for you and about stepping back and understanding your behaviours and understanding what's going on in your body. And that takes work, and it takes people usually to help you. And sometimes as an adult, it's great to have a psychologist or a counsellor or somebody that can help you work through what are these behaviours, why are we seeing them, what are they doing for you, how are they serving you? And they are serving you in some way, shape or form, either negatively or positively. But understanding that and talking through it is really good and really important. I remember we're sort of would have been in my early 30s, I got to a point where I could talk to my friends and say, hey, when I'm depressed, I do this. I stop talking to you. I won't respond to your text. I will cancel. I'll cancel our dates. Very last minute, you'll get really angry at me. I will be the worst friend. And I'm apologizing now for this, but I'm also letting you know that this is what's happening for me. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling lonely. It's really hard for me to communicate with other people. It's really hard for me to feel like I'm in a space and being, just okay. Like I feel really anxious whenever I'm around people. But what would be really helpful is not to stop texting me, not to stop calling me, and not to stop inviting me. I might not come to any of them, and I might respond to your text messages 2 days later, but those connections mean that I can then talk to myself and say, hey, see, there's people that want to connect with me still. I'm not alone, and counteract all those negative thoughts that kind of pop in there. Mm-hmm. But it took a long time to get to a space to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, that reassurance is everything, because I can find myself in very similar situations, and it's crazy that the brain's like, what the narrative is. It's like, but then I guess when that friend does message, or it's like, I'm just checking in, or, and I think to touch on that, when you're doing these things and you're pushing people away, and then like, it's just like a hand on your shoulder and it's like, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. And it's acceptance for that. It is healing. And I think that comes back into community, right?
Absolutely.
The community. And I speak to Trav, we talk about this often. And I speak to a lot of people, because I talk about how a lot of people say to me like, oh, like you should see a therapist, and I'm like, I have been in therapy for like my whole life. And I was like, sometimes it's like, I don't want to dive into it. Sometimes I would love I'm trying, I guess, that community piece, because there's so many different ways. Surf therapy, for example, is another way of healing. Community way of healing. And you know what? They come together as well. I think there's so many different modalities to healing that it doesn't just look like sitting in a chair like this with a psychologist or a therapist and talking about it. I think, somatics, there's so many things that can help heal. And I guess like going into that surf therapy, what do you think it was that helped with that like depression? I guess how did that help? And was it touching with that inner child or?
I think there was many different elements for it. For me, and everybody is different, and everyone talks about surf therapy and what surfing gives them as something that's very different. For me, it was a break. It was, in the water, I didn't have a chance for my thoughts to ruminate because the ocean doesn't allow that to happen, does it? You can't think about the same thing over and over again and not think there's a wave that's going to smash me. I need to do something about it and actually do something about it. So it's that there was a like forced mindfulness of I'm here in this present moment. I can't cycle around these thoughts that I'm having at the moment. So there was that element to it, a break. And a break is huge when you are ruminating nonstop. And then there was that skill development, like that trying to do something, really focusing my mind in and seeing incremental changes and growth in those things, that sparked something in me of like, oh, I can make change. I can do something different. And that kind of egged me on as well. And then it was a purpose. So every day I had a purpose of getting up, I'd go to the beach and I'd try and surf. And so that purpose was really driving me as well, of driving out sort of those feelings of, depression, those thoughts that I was having, those feelings of not good enough. And it would be overcome by this need to, hey, I've got to get down to the beach. And then, being in the water, being playful, laughing. Laughing is huge. Like I didn't laugh very often. And being able to just like fall off a board, I'd come up absolutely like just giggling because I thought it was like I looked ridiculous. I felt ridiculous, but I was having fun. And so like that giggle and that laughter was another part, which is probably where that little child comes out and gets to be playful again. And so all those different elements kind of, they built on top of each other. And then I found this community in surfing as well. So like it started with just one other girl and she was learning to surf, and then we went surfing together, and then that built up to we had to think about 3 people that were 3 or 4 people, and we would go and meet every day, and then we'd have coffee afterwards and that, talk about surfing, and that surf feeling stayed around longer when you spoke about it, when you shared it with friends. And so there was, this little, building blocks all stacking on top of each other, which is this amazing thing of surfing. When you talk about surfing, people are like, oh, I can't explain it to you. It's a feeling. And it's kind of like that. There's all these different elements. And there's even more that other people feel that that don't connect as much as what those ones did for me, that they're like, I've spoken to some of our young people and they say, when I get smashed by a wave and everything, like my whole body's just moving underwater, it makes me feel like what my brain is like. And I feel connected, and then I can wash it all away. And then that, that is something so totally unique that can happen in the ocean environment of like, my brain's all smashed and I'm not feeling great. And then my body gets smashed and it all aligns, and then it can wash away. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
I love that.
And this was like, I think it was like a 12-year-old kid that told me this. And I was like, wow.
Mind blown.
To have that kind of knowledge about how they were feeling and what was happening for them in that moment, that is phenomenal.
It's like almost teaching them emotional like awareness and intelligence as well, because I think kids have to feel it. I mean, actually, I think that everyone sometimes has to just feel it.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, hang on, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. And do you think, I guess, like learning to surf and that like I can do it and that momentum, then do you think like launching Ocean Mind, it helped you with that as well. And it's like, I can do this. I can do hard things.
Yes and no. I think launching Ocean Mind, I was very unaware of how much work and dedication and time and my life would be involved in this. This, like, when I thought about Ocean Mind, I was like, hey, this would be a great little side project. This was just going to be, you know, some fun on the side of, you know, the real work that I was doing at, you know, at one of the organizations I was working for. That was going to be just my fun side project. Yep. And I didn't go into it realizing quite what I was stepping into. And I think if I did, I might not have taken that leap into starting an organization, because it is hard. Like it was lots of new things that I had to learn that I had no idea about. You know, it's like boards and having, you know, funding and looking after that, and acquittals and applications and getting a ABN and you know, just everything that came along with starting a business. I was so unaware, blissfully unaware when I started it. I was like, this is just going to be a great idea and I'm going to go with it. So I think the perseverance came, like when it started getting hard, I didn't quit because I'd learned those skills of, hey, you just keep going. You just, you know, you may fall, something might not go right, but you just get back up and you just dust yourself off and you just keep taking one step at a time, and eventually you'll get there. I think those were some lessons that I drew from that, you know, adult learning to surf.
Mm-hmm. I'm just imagining like adult Rachel being like in the waves, like getting smashed. Your brain is just like swirling around under that wave.
Yeah.
That's so funny. It's like, it's going to be a fun little side project, because like starting a business is one thing, but I feel like because it's a charity, Ocean Mind, isn't it? That's a whole nother thing. Like I've kind of come across it recently and I'm like, oh my, how does that even work? You know? So like, and it's something like people don't talk about, and it's not super common, is trying to like organize that is like a whole nother kettle of fish as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been really lucky on this journey. Every time I have gotten to a place where I've been like, I don't know what the next step is, there's been somebody in the community that has helped me out. Like this was never a project that I did alone. From the very beginning, there was there was always someone by my side. Maybe like different people along the way, but just being like, we can do this. Let's start here, or this is a great position that you're getting into now. Or if I get into like a space where I'm like, I don't know the legal terminology that I need to write policies and procedures, somebody's come along and be like, I do, and have helped out. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, thank God. But yeah, so every step of the way there has been like from starting it, from the initial ideas, from talking to people, it has built up this momentum behind Ocean Mind. And so, you know, I was so lucky that when we first started, I contacted a surf therapy program in the UK that had been running for like 7 years. I said, hey, I want to do what you're doing. And they're like, yes, you do, and we're going to help you. And they, like, the CEO of that organization mentored me for a whole year to make sure that I could get this. They provided us with models. They provided us with their evaluation techniques. They, you know, gave me all this great advice on, you know, how do we even get a CRM together, and like, how do I collect the data of our young people, and how do we make sure that's safe, and all of those questions I never thought about. I was like, we're just taking kids into the water and we're teaching them to surf, and it's going to be great, and we're going to have mentors, and the community is going to really back it, and that's all I need to worry about. And it wasn't. There was so much paperwork that was ridiculous. But I had people every step of the way supporting me through that, and being part of Ocean Mind. So like our first board of the organisation were the first group of mentors that came down to the beach and helped out. And they all were passionate. They loved what we were doing, and they put their time and energy into it. And as we built and built, we had more board members, and the board became like the brains trust, but they were also like the unpaid workers of Ocean Mind. And they built out the organisation with me to what it is today. And, without all that community support, it wouldn't have happened. So, it almost feels like it wasn't me starting this. It was everybody starting this. And without everybody in the community backing it, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. It's like a common cause, isn't it? It's like something that so many people get behind and they're like, yep, this is really bloody important and we want to help and do something about it. It can be such a great motivation. And that's so cool that you had so much support and people rallying. Oh, that company in the UK, that's so cool. That's epic. So much learning and knowledge would have come out of that.
Absolutely. So it was Joe from the Wave Project, and he, had 7 years of experience of trial and error that I could then I started there. I didn't start at the very beginning. And he was so open and had the same mentality as what I do is the more the merrier. Let's share what we know. Let's share our knowledge as much as possible so that we can, build a better world. And so if somebody in Australia wants to start surf therapy, then start it. I hope that we've been able to continue that tradition by helping other people around Australia who have been really interested in starting surf therapy to kind of help build out surf therapy for them as well, and give them as much as what they've what we've received to be able to build.
So cool. Yeah, it's one of those things that you can look at people as competitors, or you can look at them as, oh no, we're all doing this together and we're building industry and we're building community. So I think that's so important. How long has Ocean Mind been running now?
We are in our 7th season.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. So that's 7 years. So I guess you're kind of at the mark of where that Joe was it that, mentored you.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And what has Ocean Mind, what's one of the biggest lessons do you think that it's taught you?
Oh God.
One of, or a lesson?
Probably the biggest one is rely on other people. Ask for help. And it doesn't need to be perfect, I think is probably a big one. It doesn't need to be perfect before you put it out there. I was always it needed, had that perfectionism in me, and just building out on Ocean Mind and being if we had have waited till it was perfect, we would have never started. And so it taught me to just put it out there and be brave. I'm scared about talking to people on the phone, and I'm scared about how the community will see all these things. And I'm scared that, people might not share the same ideologies as what I have, but I'm going to put them out there anyway, and be brave in doing so. Yeah.
Yeah. Bravery. It's one of those things, putting yourself out there, because I think you almost have to get with the podcast. I remember I got to a point where I was you know what? I would like to be proud of the work I'm putting out there, but by no means is it perfect. And I think it's one of those things that I had to get to a place where I was you know what? If my ideology that I'm putting out there and what I'm saying people don't agree with, I hope that they tell me, because there could be so much learning in that as well, which comes back to that is community, right? You can't have a community if it's that scared or that vulnerability of putting yourself out there and going, you know what, this is me, this is what I think. Community is working through things together, and it's the collaboration, and it's oh, actually, I don't agree with that, and here's why, in a non-defensive way, because it's so easy to get so defensive, and it's this is what I want. and this is what it should look like, but you've got to just bloody go with it sometimes.
Absolutely. And do you know what? Like, the world is better because people have different opinions and because people do things differently, and because people see the world differently. Like, it makes it a more diverse place, and I think that's really great. But it's about, when there is misalignment or people don't agree, it's like, how do we learn from each other and listen to each other instead of butting heads?
Yeah, it's collaboration rather than like defensiveness. How did you notice perfectionism come up for you with your surfing as well?
Yes.
I mean, do you still feel that?
Yes.
Asking for a friend.
Simple question. Simple answer. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think now, as I'm gotten to a better surfer, I think it kicks in even more now than what it did when I was learning. Because when I was learning, I was able to go, oh, you're just learning. You're just learning. You haven't got it. You haven't mastered it. It's okay. And then would get excited every time I went through these learning curves and got something new. And then I got to a point where I was like, well, I can surf. I can surf now. Like I can take, I could do, I'm not a beginner anymore.
Yeah.
Like I could call myself an intermediate surfer. But now that I call myself an intermediate surfer, I'm like, oh, you messed that up. Oh, you did that wrong. Oh, you messed up that pop-up. You didn't turn where you were supposed to turn on that wave, and like neg myself out a bit. And that's why, when I talk about at the start, I was talking about, going back in with the kids and getting like teaching the kids again and seeing their story and being like, oh yeah, that's it. Then the next time I surf, I'm like, I bring them with me.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
Yeah.
And often I see myself just negging myself out going, you didn't do that right. Hey, you messed up that pop-up. Why are you on your knees and not on your feet? All these little things. We talk about being kind to ourselves, and we talk about, that's how we should be. And sometimes we do it. Sometimes we're like, oh no, it's fine. We're okay. We're just having a play day. It doesn't need to be a serious surf day. But other days you just really sometimes you get out of the surf and you're just like pretty bummed. You feel like everything went a bit a mess and everything, you slipped here, you paddled wrong there, you couldn't catch a wave, and you're like, I can do better than this.
You come out of the water more frustrated especially too, because that's the moment when you're like, I need a surf. It's like, I need a surf. I need to feel better. It's like I always say to my partner, it's really hard surfing for self-care sometimes, because you go in the water and sometimes, because you can't control it, you actually, maybe you can to a degree, but you come back out and you're like, I'm just so much angrier because it was just frustrating. Or I like spook myself and I'm like, oh, I can't be out here.
Yep. And I wonder sometimes if it's how we're approaching the water is what we get out of the water. And that, if we're like going in there and then we have a surf that's like that. We can't expect anything else if we're approaching it that way. But I still feel like, even though I've had some really bad surfs, and even though I neg myself out in surfing sometimes, I've never regretted it. Like, even just getting in the water, I might come out more frustrated, but I'm so glad I went in.
There's almost like I say this about all extreme sports, but I think it's the biggest mirror for what's going on. And it's like, you're frustrated when you get out, and it's like, why? Why are you so frustrated, Heidi? It's like, you're in like Torquay. Like, one, you live here. It's like you're in a surfing destination. Like, it's like well known all around the world, and you're surfing here. Why are you so frustrated at the fact that you can't get into a wave, or the waves are too big, or, there's so many moments. Same with like bikes and things. I'm like, I'm doing something that I love, and it's in the most incredible place. You're in nature. And I think in that moment, I'm like, just appreciate nature. Just get out of yourself. I think there's so much mirroring to like lessons to be learned.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely.
And it's almost like, okay, maybe you didn't get the most self-care out of that surf. So what do you need to do now? It's like oh no, the lesson still needs to be there. You need to go meditate. You need to go journal. You need to go speak to someone, have a coffee, maybe, this and that. So I think it's like, yeah, surfing can like teach you so much.
So much.
So much.
So much there.
So much. And with Ocean Mind, so how is that set up? It's for young people and for youth. And then do you take them out in the water? What, I guess, does that kind of look like?
Yeah. Well, Ocean Mind's set up as a surf therapy program for young people that are aged 8 to 18. And what we do is each young person is matched with a mentor. So we go out to the community and we just train up community mentors to support young people in the water to surf. And a young person will come and be part of our 6-week swell as their first entry into the Ocean Mind community. And in that 6-week swell, they'll spend 6 weeks, obviously, in the name. 6 weeks coming down to the beach, meeting their same mentor every week, and learning to surf or having an opportunity. I'm not going to say learning to surf, having the opportunity to surf. They don't have to. They can just spend the day on the beach. They can spend the day playing in the shore, or they can grab a board and try and learn to surf. As everything's open to them, and there's no set goal that this is what you have to do. And each of our young people, we get to know them a little bit before we get down to the beach. We understand, which mentor they'll kind of connect with, and we match them up. And then, we have a group of 10 young people and 10 mentors that go down to the beach with 2 of our staff. And when they're at the beach, they play some games. We have a model that intentionally works on building relationships to begin with their volunteer, and then moves out into building out relationships with community. So, making sure that the kids are learning some skills around how to connect with other people, which we know is really important. And then they get this opportunity to learn to surf. And so it's like some young people have surfed before, some young people have never been to an ocean before. And so we have a whole mix in our programs. And because we've got that one-to-one connection with our mentors, we can cater for most young people and what their needs are, which is really exciting. And we see so many young people that just make huge leaps and bounds in their skills, in their confidence, in how they feel about themselves through those 6 weeks. And those programs, I think you mentioned it before, mental health is really expensive. All those programs are free. So there's no burden on any of the parents or the families to actually financially support the kids to get into the program. We do the hard work. That's our job. We're the professionals. We do the hard work. We find the money. They just come and get the support they need. And so after a young person does a 6-week swell, they now graduate and are able to join our surf club. And so we have the Ocean Mind Surf Club, which runs through each term except for term 3 because it's a little bit cold. And then our young people then can come down and access ongoing support and ongoing sessions. The mentor relationships are a bit different because they're new mentors every time. So they're building out this sense of community. So a bigger group of people that are there to support. They understand that not just one person can support them, but there's a tribe of people behind them that can support them. And they can continue with our surf club for as long as they want. So this is long-term support. This is, we're around for 7 years. We've had some kids that have been coming for 7 years. And, we are really, that's something we're really proud of, is being able to support young people long-term. And then when our young people get 16, we give them an opportunity to become a peer mentor. So that's, that whole cycle of coming back around and being able to give back to other young people and teach them this skill that's just changed their lives. They then get to change somebody else's life. And we've seen so many young people come through to be peer mentors, and it's been so changing for them. You see them just stand up a little bit taller as they're meeting their young person for the first time, and they just know instinctively what to do and how to support support these kids, and they feel so great when their young person stands up or does something great or gets to their knees or, overcomes a challenge. And they're like, yes, you've got this. And it's so much more than when we do it as adults. Like just seeing the kids interact together like that is really exciting. And so that's kind of the Ocean Mind model and program in a nutshell, a long nutshell.
A long nutshell. It's so incredible. And I guess who's Ocean Mind for?
All of us.
Everyone. Mentors, kids, everyone.
I was going to say, I mean, we do it for our young people and we do it for their families as well. When mental health or mental illness is in a family, or when a child's not doing well, it doesn't just affect the child, it affects the whole family. So we're doing it for the families, we're doing it for the young people, but we're also doing it for the mentors. Like we build community for them as well. Like, we have all these, the mentors find their people that they connect with. They go out and surf together, and it's really, it's really fantastic to see the community build for those mentors, but also they're giving back. Like there's something really special about giving back and feeling like you're putting value into your community. And we hear a lot from our mentors that's a big thing for them, and they feel like they start their weekend with an Ocean Mind session, and then they're like, oh, I've just won the weekend. Like I've just already, like, I feel fantastic about myself. I feel fantastic. I've had fun. And then I've gone surfing with this cool bunch of people afterwards, and we had coffee, and like that has filled their cup so much. And sort of really made them refreshed for their weekend. Yeah.
So cool.
So it's for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, it must be really rewarding for yourself as well
Absolutely.
to go, oh my gosh, look at what myself along with community have created as well. Yeah, so incredible.
Yeah.
And I guess where do you think Ocean Mind will go? Like, do you have anything that's like any dreams or anything with that?
It's a very good question. And one we keep talking about with the staff and with the community of Ocean Mind, of like, where do we take this? Like, this works so well. What do we do with it? And so last year we made the decision to expand. We've just employed somebody in the Mornington Peninsula to build out Ocean Mind in the peninsula, which is very exciting, very scary, but very exciting.
Yeah.
And so the long-term vision, like if we can get Mornington Peninsula working, like it is here in the Greater Geelong region, then that will be beyond all expectations that I ever had for the organisation. But I talked to my staff and they're like, let's make it Australia-wide. Yeah,
let's go worldwide.
And they're like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, you're like, the paperwork.
The paperwork. Yeah, but there's so much there's so much excitement within the whole team of where we can take Ocean Mind. There's ideas around making it a pop-up thing for rural communities and building out this Ocean Mind community in a rural and regional areas where mental health support isn't as readily available, and can we do it? And there's so many beaches in Australia, like why are we not? And then also in a next breath they're like, well, one of the big things in surfing is your surf trips of holidays used to be going and exploring places. Now holidays that you surf, you're going and finding the new waves, better waves, different waves, warm waves. And so is that like, do we introduce our community to this idea of surf trips and take them on some journeys to find different waves and to find and to show them how they can find this in their life no matter where they are, and teach them how to read waves and to find new spots and to go on a surf trip down the coast, which is like something that we all do when we learn to surf, we start, oh, where else can we surf? But can we introduce that into the Ocean Mind community? And so there's all these great ideas, and we've not kind of landed on where we're going to head.
But the dreams are there.
The dreams are there.
Sounds so exciting.
So exciting. Just wish somebody would be like, and this wave
This
this
is
magic
how we
wand,
do
and
it.
this is how we do it.
That's my job. You're like the fairy godmother,
I'm
Rachel.
supposed to be the fairy godmother. I know. I can't.
Yeah.
Haven't quite worked it all out yet.
Totally. And it's like one of those things you've got to like, be like, okay, well, this is the vision. How can we make that work?
Absolutely.
And it's really nice because it sounds like as well, like travel was a really big part of your life. But it's also really nice that you're like, oh, well, let's bring that to the Ocean Mind community as well, which is so cool. And what about yourself? Where have you traveled to surf and things like that?
So it's only been in the last sort of 9 years that I've been surfing, traveling.
Yeah.
But I think one of my favorite places was in the Philippines. I can never pronounce this place. But what was it called? Oh, I can't remember the name.
I remember.
Yeah.
Send me the name and I'll put it up on the screen for anyone watching.
Excellent. Okay, in the Philippines is one of my favorites. It was because it felt like you were on the surge. There wasn't that many people surfing, and that you would go and there would just be this wave in the middle of the ocean and they would boat out to it and nobody else would be on it, and you and the two other people that were in the boat with you were the only surfers, and you were like, wow,
that's incredible.
This still happens somewhere in the world. I'm sure this was a while ago, so I'm sure it doesn't happen like that anymore in this place. But it was like that when I was there. And where else have I travelled for surf? Indonesia, Sri Lanka.
What about like up north, WA?
No, no.
Yeah, not so much Australia.
Never done Australian surf trips as much.
Have you been to Noosa?
No.
Oh,
No.
I learned to surf in Noosa.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was a really rude shock. I was like, what do you mean you can't just surf in your bikinis down here? And like this warm, beautiful waves with turtles.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. It's a little bit different.
Done that.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God. What about Philippines? Was that would have been
Philippines
warm?
was warm. Yeah. So all the surf trips that I've gone to have been warm, and yeah, I've been looking for warm water. But yeah, down here, my main surfing, and even in where I learnt to surf in Portugal, that was cold water.
Yeah. It's got a different shock to it, doesn't it? The cold water.
It does.
Something you get used to though.
Yeah, absolutely.
You climatize and
Yep.
I always wish I learnt in cold water so that it wasn't so like, oh.
Yeah.
And what does self-care look like for you at the moment?
Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
I don't think anyone's ever perfect with it. Hey,
no,
it's not easy. That's why I asked the question, because I'm like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I've got a couple of things. Like I run, and I give myself run challenges.
Nice.
To help with that. And so I'm doing the half marathon at the Great Ocean Road half marathon in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. My partner was training for it, but stress fractures.
Oh no.
I know. Yeah. That's in a couple of weeks. That's exciting.
Yep. And then surfing, obviously.
Yep.
I get out there. I love to say every day. I used to do it every day, but I probably get a couple of times a week now.
Yeah, nice.
And then I journal every night before bed. Just whatever's on my mind, I just get into it. And I only do a really short amount. I don't allow myself to blabble on.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I want to say? You've got 5 lines. Say it in your 5 lines.
Amazing.
And then that's kind of like that going to bed routine.
Yeah.
To help get that
question, because this is something I want to get into. Do you do it in bed or out of bed?
In bed.
In bed.
Yeah. Yeah. I
get
kind
it out
of
and then
get in, get ready. I do my what's on my mind right now. Put it out there, and then I could kind of read.
Have you
my book
noticed?
and go to bed.
Yeah. Has that helped a lot?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like I used to have such bad insomnia, and I would ruminate and ruminate and ruminate around things, and I couldn't get to sleep. It took me hours to get to sleep, and this has helped. Like I have this little diary, and it's got 5 years in the diary, and it's every day for 5 years, and I just like it's tiny amounts, and sometimes I write so small so I can get everything out, but other times I just write a couple of words, and that's that. It just frees my mind to then get into bed and stop ruminating.
You're almost giving it the container.
Yeah.
Like just go, have your moment. It's kind of disciplined, isn't it? It's like, get it out. We're done.
Yeah.
Close the book. I think it's like the action of it all as well.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I've been thinking more, I'm like a morning journaler.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but sometimes I'm like, I think it makes me think like a lot more sometimes. But it is also a good way for me to be like, okay, start the work day now and put it away. So maybe, I'm going to try that at night, I reckon.
Yeah. I find it like it helps me look at what my day was and really ask myself, like, how are you feeling right now and why are you feeling it? And sort of I write, it's not like I'm not a writer. I'm not great with words, but I just write very basic stuff that it means stuff to me, and helps me kind of go, all right, well, that's what I'm feeling now, and that's why I'm feeling it. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Have you ever gone back and read any of it?
Yes.
And you're like, that was a time.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is I found as I've read back in it, because it's 5 years, and on the same page you got the last 4 years of writing, I found patterns. They're like, so at this time of the year, I generally feel these kinds of things, and I'm feeling them now again. I'm like, okay, cool. So knowing this about myself, how can I support me feeling these kinds of things at this time of the year, and so it kind of gives me a little bit more insight into the things I do and why I do them, or even just checking in and going, well, this happens all the time. Why is it happening? And why does it happen in March?
Powerful. Wow. And I mean, what is it? Is it the weather? Is it
I think, all right. So
is there birthdays in March? Is there?
My birthday's in March.
Oh, what day? I'm March too.
18.
No way, I'm the 18th.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I'm March 18.
Wow.
I mean, that explains so much.
Yeah.
You're a Pisces. Yeah. The rumination. I was like,
Yeah.
It's a killer.
It is a killer.
That is so fascinating that you found around your birthday.
Around my birthday, I get anxious. I get I get really neggy to myself. I get really neggy to my family and my friends. I tend to push everyone away. And then I'm like, why do I do this? And I was like, that sense of I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve in the last 12 months, and I'm sitting in a position that I don't want to be in, and I had all these hopes. It's kind of what happens when people do, they got a New Year's resolution and then they don't do their New Year's resolution. I don't get that around New Year's. I get that around my birthday. And on my birthday, I'm like, I haven't done all those things I wanted to do. I'm still here. I'm still not doing this. I haven't done this. And it brings all this negative stuff in me out. And I'm like, and then I push everyone away because I'm feeling so negative. And my mom's like, you've done that since you were a child. Your birthdays have never been fun for anyone around you or you, and it's all because you do this. And I'm like,
Mum, you could have told me that.
Thanks for telling me when I'm 36, Mum.
That would have been helpful at 16.
Exactly.
I just need to bypass my birthday and everything will be fine. I'm forever 16.
Yeah. That's it.
I often ponder the thought of, imagine if we just didn't have an age.
That would be an interesting concept, wouldn't it?
I think it would be so helpful.
I think so too.
I want to, I've just had this thought, but I want to somehow come up with another concept for age. Okay, Even like how many laps around the sun have you had, you know? Because I feel like you're not identified with an age. Because people get so caught up on age.
They do.
Myself included.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, if we didn't have it, what would it look like?
Because it's like one of the first things. It's like when you meet like a partner, and I say this because there's a bit of an age gap between Trav and I, and it's like, how old are you?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm this age. And then it's like, oh, how old are you? I remember we had to like have a bit of a chat about it because it's like, well, what does age represent to you? And I'm like, I think it's just a number, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, totally. I think it depends on like where you are in like your journey and what you've learned and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where you are in your journey is probably the best way to put it. It's like, an 18-year-old is not, there's no stock standard 18-year-old.
No.
There's no sort of, age that certain things happen.
Totally.
We're all a bit different and we all develop differently. And
learn differently too.
Differently, and things come to us at different ages and mature differently. And it would be an interesting world to take away age.
It would,
because it holds us back so much.
So much.
Yep. Yeah.
And just mentally. So much mentally. I think there's so much like comparison because you're quantifying almost your experience.
Yeah.
Through your age, because like if you're this age, like you should be a certain way, or like marriage and kids and a house and a job and all of that. But when it's like, I should start asking people, where are you in your journey? You'd get so much more out of it.
Absolutely.
Because I think when someone goes, what, I'm 28, and it's like, oh, I know where you are, because you think about when you're that age, for example, and you're like, oh, but like their experience is so different. Where when you ask the question, like, where are you at in your journey? It's like, oh, well, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to start a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm, trying to figure out what I want to be doing for money. It's funny how it kind of shifts like how you answer the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a funny thing. Age. And funny thing, we have the same birthday as well. I have to send you a birthday message every year. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a message. Happy birthday. Don't be so nego on yourself. You've got this.
You got this. Yeah. Actually, this year, very personal, but this year my mum called me every single day the week leading up to my birthday, just being like, hi, honey, just checking in. How you feeling? Making sure you have a good birthday. And you know what? I had a great birthday because mum just kept reminding me.
Oh, she got it out of the way early.
She did.
That's good.
She just, she's like, I'm just going to try this and see if it works for you.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
But it's funny that age I am still.
Yeah.
My mum's has such, and my parents and my family have such an influence over how I feel and how I can feel, and the support that they give me, makes a world of difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just like, talking about how lucky I was with my family when I was younger. I was still so lucky.
Yeah.
And then I think it makes me think about all those that they don't have access to that. And I imagine, what would it be like if I didn't have access to that? Where would I be? I don't even want to contemplate it. And so how is it not then my responsibility to then make sure that I can be that to somebody else?
100%. And it doesn't matter what that looks like either. Because I think it's just because you have someone that you're related to through blood doesn't mean it doesn't have to mean a certain thing. Just because you don't share the same blood, I know that sounds really weird, but just because they're not your family doesn't mean that they can't hold a really special place. I think I heard a saying the other day, and it's oh, my auntie. And it was not my actual auntie, but my auntie, and it's I was I was such a nice thing. And I was you know what, in that moment I was I really hope that people call me an auntie, or, I feel like family. Yeah. I had another friend and she used to be you're not like, she's like, you're like my best friend, but you're not like, she's like, you're not like my best friend. She's like, you're like my family friend and not like my family's friend. You're like my friend that feels like family.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love that. It's like, I think it's so important, you know, and for people to know that if you're not like close with your family or you don't have family, it doesn't mean that you can't build a community or a family around yourself as well. Because you have the choice to build that around you and build that community around you as well. So absolutely. Well, I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much for coming on.
Not a problem at all.
It's been such a pleasure.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah, finding someone else. We should go for a birthday surf together.
Should do, yes.
So good.
Next year.
Yeah.
Birthday surf.
Birthday surf. Hello. If you are watching this, it means you've made it to the end of the podcast, and I'm so blessed that you've chosen to spend the time here with us at Extremely Well. If you liked what you saw here today, and I'm hoping you did if you're here at the end, can you please hit that subscribe button, hit the follow, leave a review, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. This is all for you. So we want to make sure that we are serving the community in the best way that we can. If you want to connect with us through our other channels, I'll leave them down below in the description box, and I can't wait to connect with you next time.